Welcome to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio. I'm one of your hosts, Rachel Brooks Smith.
And this is Emilio Palafox.
And we have a super special guest today. This man is such an inspiration, and my love is going to tell you all about him, but his name is Blake Mallen, and he is a badass.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you guys for always playing full out on our tribe and here on the radio, as well as our YouTube channel. We have Blake Mallen, and I'm happy and really excited to talk about what we're going to talk about here. But his bio here is just incredible. So Blake is a billion-dollar brand builder. He's a community marketing expert, TED speaker, and the host of the popular Alive by Design podcast, which I've heard some of the podcasts. It's fantastic. Definitely go check it out, guys. As a serial entrepreneur, Blake has over 2 decades of experience building global companies that have transformed millions of lives in the health, wellness, nutrition, and lifestyle categories. Speaking at events all over the world, Blake's latest TED Talk on how to shift the script and his Alive by Design podcast are helping people pursue their meant to and make the shift from being alive to feeling fully alive. And what a perfect time right now to have this conversation, because even pre-COVID, there was a lot of people just going through the motions and really going by the script, which we'll get into. And I think no matter what's happening in life, it's always important to hey, this is your one life. Let's live it fully. And so we're going to really dive in. I'm really excited because this is one of the main topics, as you guys know, we talk about in Relationship Renegades, to really live a full life. And so without further ado, Blake Mallen, thank you so much for being on the show.
I love it. I'm excited to be here. And I know we're like neighbors. We're right up the street from each other right now.
Good to know. He's literally 2 houses down and we had no idea. No, I'm kidding.
Too many more hangouts in the future.
Yeah.
Well, Blake, just starting off, your TED Talk just spoke to my soul because there is this script, and we're going to talk about that. But can you tell the listeners a little bit about what that means, shifting this script, and why that's such an important message for all of us?
I love it. Well, I appreciate the compliments on the TED Talk. That was a cool experience to be able to do that actually right out here in Los Angeles. I was over at the Watts Empowerment Center in LA.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was awesome. I actually had built a relationship with a lot of the individuals leading that organization. It's a great organization, giving back to the community here. And but they gave me a week's notice for that. It was crazy. They were putting together and hosting the TEDx event. And I got the invite about a week before they were doing the event. So I appreciate the confidence because I had about a week to figure out, I want to stand on the red circle. That'd be an amazing experience. And then it goes well, what the heck is the message I want to give to the world in 18 minutes or less?
Yes.
But, I guess, Rachel, to answer your question, so it came pretty naturally because what I share in the TED Talk, at least the beginning, is really just my story. So that concept of a script wasn't a new idea for the talk. It's something that I'd felt I'd been living and being kind of short for a prescription for how to live. So that's what I mean when I talk about a script. There's a lot of script we all follow in life. But in that specific conversation, I'm talking about kind of what it seems to be a global script for here's the steps you need to do to live a good life. And we all know them, right? They go to school, study hard, get good grades. So you can go to college, study hard and get good grades. So you can graduate, work hard and get a good job. So you can find the right person, get married, have kids, save money, eventually retire. We've all heard this.
Yes.
And
I love how everyone in the audience just regurgitates it back all around the world. We all know it.
It's crazy. So yeah, that's what I mean by the script and the prescription that I think most of us, were taught at some point growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what is flawed about that? I think you really point out, okay, if we're working so hard to one day be happy, or to one day, have it all, or to one day get to retire, I just love that you're questioning that script and why, and I know a message that's so important to you is why.
Yep. So
why do you think that's flawed, and how have you changed the script for yourself, and how are you empowering others to do the same?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. That why, the reason I'm so passionate about that is because it was that question that woke me up, right? And I don't know if anybody that watches or listens to this has ever had a point in their life where someone said something, and they're just words, right? But like, for some reason, those words in those moments were might as well have been like a smack in the face or a punch in the gut. Like, it was like, wow, is a wake up. And that question, although it's a simple one, it's a short one. That's what woke me up. I was a sophomore year in college. I went to school down at UCSD. Emilio, I think you love to surf.
I do love to surf, brother.
Yeah, I love it. We're gonna have to paddle out here in locally soon. But so I went to UCSD because, really, truth be told, it's right above Black's Beach, and I was walking distance to Black's Beach, so I grew up surfing. But long story short, I went to UCSD and was going to school to be a lawyer. Or so I thought. And I remember I was taking my summer vacation interning for a district attorney. And I was literally just miserable. I was like, all my friends were having fun, enjoying their summer. And I'm sitting here in, like, dressed up slacks and a shirt, filing manila folders, and just like miserable. But I was telling myself, like, oh, this is the price you got to pay. This is, what you're supposed to do. And I don't know, I had a mentor that maybe just felt I was, in a place where I was unfulfilled or unhappy or just not enjoying it. And he just asked me that question. He said, well, why are you doing it? And that was the ton of bricks moment, because I didn't have an answer. I was like, isn't this what I'm supposed to do?
Yeah.
And boom, that was the first shift of realizing I was living my whole life for no better reason than it's what I thought, or I'd been told I was supposed to do. And you guys probably have seen this. So, like, speaking to a lot of people all over the world, I'm amazed of how many people are still running motions, not because they're on fire, not because they love it, not because they're passionate, but because they think that's what they're supposed to do, and they're feeling that way. So that's the shift. That was the moment. That's the why.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think it's like, we've heard it more and more about, finding your why, your purpose, your passion. I really like that, one of your values that you really do is really just optimizing those, for one. And I certainly can relate too. I mean, I remember my past life, if you will, is like, I call it my past life, but it's like years ago, finance, accounting, consulting, all in the oil and gas. I was like in Houston, Texas. And when I was there climbing the corporate ladder or consulting, it was just like, people were miserable there. We talk about it at happy hour, it was just the same routine. Like, I was dying inside. It was lucrative, but I was dying inside every single time. And it was those questions, that growth mindset, right, if you will, having these conversations with yourself as to why we're doing this. And really kind of, and I think, it's so much because we have like two ways we process information, right? Like our subconscious mind and our conscious mind. And I think a lot of people don't realize that the subconscious mind a lot of the time is running the show. Until your conscious mind kind of says, hey, like whatever it is, whatever why question it is for anybody, or whatever it is that wakes someone up, it reminds me of, I don't know if you've seen this meme or this picture, but it's a guy in New York City in Times Square. And it reminds me of this where, the first shot, it's a 2-part shot. And then the first shot is like the guy just looking around and he just sees the buildings and the people. And then the second shot of this is he has glasses on, and it's like the awake kind of vision, if you will, to where, he sees things. He doesn't see buildings or people anymore. He sees like consume, buy, obey, this, that, it's like just like all the things like behind the veil, if you will, of like the script of everything that's kind of running the show. And it's like, we're in the perfect time, right? Where the great awakening, if you will.
Yes.
And so, I think just such a perfect time to talk about this and really dive deep.
Yeah, and I think for people listening, they're like, okay, I'm in a job I don't like. I feel miserable. I'm working so hard and I don't know why. What do you say, or how could you say to listeners that might help them in the like, what do I do? Because I have to pay my bills. I have to feed my family. I have to, how can we help people have that awakening, but know the steps to take where they don't just go jump off a bridge, or what I mean? Like something that is tangible for people where they can start to live more awake and start to change things without, starving.
Yeah, that's a great question for sure. I think you said a couple times just in that sentence, the starting point, Rachel, you said awake, right? Or awaken. Everything does start with awareness. And if you are at a point right now where you've already like made the decision that you want to or need to make a shift, like amazing, awesome job. You've already gotten through probably the biggest part, which is at least an awareness level that maybe you're going down a path you're not meant to. I think there's a lot of the population out there that hasn't even woken up. Like they still don't know, like, especially right now, this last year, there's obviously been a lot of conversation on like mental health, right? And people dealing with high levels of stress and depression and anxiety and all these different terms, right, that we try to use to represent like how we're feeling. And there's a long list of reasons, valid reasons, like why people might be feeling that, and we can go through that list. I don't want to focus there. Here's my theory, and I'll throw it back to you guys because you have a lot of experience, especially dealing with relationships. My theory is all of those feelings, let's wrap them up as like you're feeling unfulfilled. You're feeling like something's missing. You're feeling like there needs to be more. That's why you're stressed or depressed or anxious or have anxiety. I think that's our body, our intuition, our soul, whatever you want to call it, trying to send us a message that you are not being who you are meant to be. Like you are not doing what you're meant to do. Like you're in a box, you're following a script, you're trying to please other people, you're, trying to adhere to expectation. And like we get these feelings, right, that we try to label and then medicate, where I think a root, it might not be the root for everybody, but I think a root, it's just that, well, that's a sign that you're not doing what you were created or designed to do. So I know I didn't answer your full question there, but I think it starts with a awareness or an awakening to be like, okay, well, maybe what I'm doing isn't what I'm meant to. And then you can start asking the questions of, well, if it's not, what am I meant to do, if that makes sense?
No, absolutely. But I think that's such a great perspective shift, right? Because if we can understand that these emotions, these feelings, we talk all the time about like emotions are indicators, right? So
data.
if it's just data, a lot of times we label these like anxiety, sadness, anger, fear as bad emotions, when in reality, they could be one of the greatest gifts, because if we understand that they're just an indicator that something's off. Yeah. I think that realization alone changed my whole life, because I was brought up in a world where I was like, just be happy. Just be happy. If you're sad or you're anxious or you're whatever, then that's not okay. Just be happy because you have so much to be grateful for. And I was like, okay,
but I'm not happy.
I'm not happy. And he was really the first person that we talk a lot about on the show, that they're just indicators. And the more that you say, okay, anxiety, okay, fear, I'm glad you're here. What are you trying to teach me? That helps me so much in my life, where I'm no longer suppressing or denying and trapping those feelings, but allowing them to surface and learning from them. And then getting to, I think curiosity is one of my favorite words that you talk about a lot as well, like the why, right? So someone's like, okay, I'm curious, I'm more awake. And I love that you talk so much about your family, right? And how much, you've built these incredible businesses, but you're also seem to be such an amazing relationship with your kids, an amazing father. How have you been able to do that? And what would you say to other fathers out there that have really busy schedules or busy lives to be able to really connect and create great relationship with your kids?
Yeah, so you touched on a lot of points there. I think they're all great.
I did. Sorry about that.
No,
five-part questions.
Five-part questions. Here we go.
5-part questions from here on out, Blake.
5A. I love all of it. I think to your point on happiness, because that's probably been an overused term in at least the growth space, right, for like the last few years. And I don't know if you found the same thing in your pursuit, but like, I think happiness is a byproduct of other things. In other words, if you focus on happiness and try to be happy, at least in my experience, like you never get there. And if you have someone saying, well, just be happy, you're like, you felt like, well, how do I do that? My personal opinion is I think happiness is a byproduct of other things. It's a byproduct of things like what you guys stand for, what you're passionate about, what this whole show is about, like quality relationships, right? You have quality relationships, you're going to be happier. Quality experiences, right? Going out there and doing things that matter, making moments matter, creating memories that matter, like pushes to happiness. Putting yourself in a gift zone, right? In a strength zone, doing things that you can excel at and you enjoy, like makes you happy. Like if we ask ourselves the question of what are the things that make us or give us happiness, and we list those things out and prioritize those things and focus on those things, I think happiness can be or will be a byproduct. But if you just focus on like, how do I be happier? I don't know if you'll ever get there. I don't know if that relates to you or you guys have any insight on that, or you feel the same way on the happiness topic.
I mean, on the happiness topic, I think for sure, I think there's things that what's coming up for me right now is like 3-part. It's like, sometimes we do, sometimes we're being, and sometimes we're allowing, right? And I think the great combination, I think there's an alchemy with those. And when there's a great alchemy with, doing the things, meaning taking action, but also just being. I think a lot of people are just trying to do, and they're not just like being who they are. And then also after you've done the things and you're just being like really like trusting, knowing that like things will happen. Meaning like if I plant a seed and I water and I give it sunshine, like, hey, don't like keep watering it, like allow it to grow, right? Like it's going to grow. And so I think like having the great alchemy with those things, I think is some of the things I think about with happiness, meaning certainly there's things that you can do, like you said, to, go and maybe get uncomfortable, to build your tribe, to get some friends, to share some experiences and make moments matter, which I know is one of your values and all these things. But then also being, and when I think about being, I think about, one of our taglines of Relationship Renegades is kill your Superman to find your Wonder Woman, or to find happiness, or to find, and what I mean by that is that I think what we talk about a lot on the show is from when we were born to now, we have accumulated based on certain experiences that we've had, walls, we've built characters, if you will, to protect us so that we feel safe or we feel loved, and have masks, et cetera, et cetera. And it's almost like that unbecoming. It reminds me of Dr. Wayne Dyer's quote of, happiness is not a destination, it's the way. Happiness is it's like, it's almost like you have it and it's like, well, you have it way over here. And if you're seeing us here on YouTube, you can see my hand signals here, but basically from the very beginning, but it's kind of like trapped there. And then, it's kind of trapped and caged by all these characters, trapped and caged by all these walls that we built. And until we have this unbecoming, they're like, oh, happiness was there all along. And so it's almost like there's things to do. There's ways of being to really feel that real Superman really at the core. And then just kind of allowing kind of life, God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it, to kind of stir that all up in a pot and then see what unfolds, which is then the beauty, I think, of life and intentional living that you talk about, which I think is fantastic. I mean, so I guess we can, with happiness and intentional living, because I know that's what you want. You want people to be aware of things and you want them to live intentionally. How
Wait, I want to go back to the father question.
I know, relationships.
Father stuff,
Yeah.
I think you guys have nailed the direction here. Have you guys ever heard of the Harvard study that's been tracking a whole graduating class for 80 years when it comes to levels of happiness? Are you guys familiar with this study?
No,
I don't know.
So there's a study out there, and I'll give you the high level, not the details, but it's one of the longest running studies in this field of psychology, and it's done by Harvard, and they basically tracked a graduating class over the last 80 years of life for the main purpose of trying to figure out what leads to health, but health in terms of physical health, mental health, and you can just call it like quality of life and happiness, right? And it's this topic, that we're talking about here. And I'll give you the punchline, right? The punchline is probably not what you would think in terms of the people that are the healthiest and the happiest, right? 80 years later. The punchline is, it comes down to relationships and community. And it's the people that have the closest and best relationships, surrounded by people that really care, really love, really support, and a community around them. Doesn't have to be big, right? But a community they know they can count on. Turns out like that's the single best thing we can do for our health, our happiness, and our longevity. So it kind of ties into what we're talking about. Like happiness is an outcome, right? Relationships is so core, no matter if you're an entrepreneur, you're a business icon, you're just making the leap, right? Relationships are everything. And I guess, Rachel, to get to your question, it's a journey on like balancing relationships. I've been on both sides of the fence, right? So I've been the over-focused, totally fanatical, many would probably call obsessed, like entrepreneur that just worked 8 to faint. All I did, do, go. There's always more. The list is never done. How can I collapse time, right? I did that for a long time. Like 15 years of my life, like straight. And I'm not going to say it didn't work, because it worked to the extent of, okay, yeah, I built a successful company, right? Took an idea, managed to go out there and turn it into something that went around the world, right? I mean, it did billions of dollars in sales from an idea. And it created, I guess, what many people might define as like success to some level. But the reality is, going through all of that, I did get at the point where it's like, man, okay, I've reached this sort of milestone and pinnacle, but like, I still felt like something was missing. And it still felt like there's got to be more. And I'm like, but that's not how the script was supposed to go. Like, you do the work, you get to the top, like you're supposed to be happy. Like, what happened? And you end up searching all over again. And I guess the punchline, it goes back to, at the end of the day, like, having the right people around you and the right relationships matter. And you know, I think having the right significant other is a game changer. Kids is a game changer, like in life. You know, I have a son that's, 5 and a daughter that's 2.5. So like crazy times for quarantine and COVID, have little ones in the household. But yeah, your priorities shift, and you find yourself wanting to spend more time, with them, creating their experiences. But I'd be lying if I said like I had the perfect balance. But I'd be honest in saying like, that matters. That is a priority. And it's a constant journey to figure out how you get it all in the day, for sure.
Yeah, no, I think, well, the biggest thing that I keep thinking about is I too, and I think why one of the reasons we're so passionate about this message is because, we both had in our own different journeys, like I had a good amount of success in my living my dreams of being an actress and being in film and TV, yet I never prioritized my relationships. And I felt so unloved, so unsupported, no matter what amazing film or commercial or big campaign I was doing. I didn't have good friends. I had really unhealthy, toxic, like romantic relationships. But I never knew, I never taught myself how to do it. Nobody ever taught me. And so I was like, gosh, we have math, we have science, and where is the relationship class? Where is the communication class? And so it's like, I'm so excited for a time. So anyways, we were just like, and he too, he talked about his past life of what he was doing, and realizing he didn't have good relationships either. And how, no matter how much money or success he had, he was not happy. And so, being like, wow, like the quality of our life is so based on the quality of our relationships. And so we're like, gosh, we got to start a platform that talks more about this stuff.
Well, one of the things I love that you said, Blake, that it is true to the core messaging and theme of Relationship Renegades, is that you said, just saying, hey, look, I can't say that I'm perfect, and I'm still working on it, and then a balance, like just being vulnerable, like telling on you, like, I think like in relationships, whether it's a man or a woman, when we say, hey, I need help, or hey, I could be better, and I'm not perfect at it, and just like being honest with ourselves and being vulnerable, and just like in men's work that I love to do, like telling on ourselves, like, they talk about this like samurai sometimes, and like you're going to go to war, but a lot of times in these men's circles, it's like not with anybody else. It's like, no, you kind of like turn that sword around and you cut yourself to say, hey, these are the things that I've been hiding, suppressing, denying, etc. So, when we think about Relationship Renegades, like, it's just saying, hey, look, I'm still on the journey, I'm learning, and I'm not always perfect. So I just wanted to honor and respect that, because
thank you for being honest.
It's that's what it's about, right? Like, we're in this together, and we'll be students for life,
And I appreciate that, Amelia. And I think that's the truth for all of us, right? Is it's constantly a journey. And I think a big starting point is like letting yourself off the hook, especially for the entrepreneurs that listen to this and the achievers out there. Like, I don't know if anybody can relate, but if you have that mindset, you tend to give yourself over guilt. Like, you guilt yourself a lot. And because you always want to do everything in every direction the best that it can be, yet there's only one you, and there's only 24 hours in a day. So it's like, number one, recognize that, let yourself, give yourself some grace, right? Yes. Don't give yourself guilt. They're all important. It took me a long time as an entrepreneur to realize that taking care of yourself should be and needs to be a priority. You can't pour from an empty cup. It took me a long time to realize, instead of go, and maybe operating at a level 7, if I just took a minute to make sure I was rejuvenated, I could operate at a level 10. Now it might be a little less time, but me at a level 10 at a little less time is better than me at a level 7 all the time. But it took me a long time as an entrepreneur to get around that, because we have that script in our head of you got to work harder, push through, grind down, never give up, never stop, right? And again, but you got to take care of yourself, right? I mean, it starts like you guys preach and you guys stand for. Like, it starts with a relationship with yourself. You got to value yourself before you value anybody else. And then when you find a significant other, like you said, Rachel, you got to make that a priority. Like, where does that stand in your priority list? I'm weird. I'm one of the weird ones where I ended up marrying my high school sweetheart. Like, we've been together. Yeah, we've been together since high school. She was a junior, I was a senior, when we met. So we've been through life together, the creation phase, the up phase, the challenging phases. But we wouldn't have made it through all of that if we didn't make sure, our relationship was a priority through all of it. And then you have kids and it's a whole new level. So you got to figure out, I think maybe the guidance for those looking for the practical starts with your values, your priorities. How important is, your career? It should be important. How important is yourself, right? And what you're doing for yourself, it should be important. How important is your relationship that you have or want to have? It should be important. How important is your relationship with your family or your inner circle? And I think it just starts with getting your arms around what is your priority list. And then at the end of the day, it comes down to time. Like, life is time. So what does your week look like? What does your month look like? And where do you want to fit all of that in? And I guess the last thing I'll say on this point is, wherever you choose to be there. If you choose to put this chunk of time into building your business or, pursuing your career, pursuing your dreams, awesome. When you're doing that, don't feel guilty you're not spending time with your significant other, friends, or kids, because right now you're focused on that. But then when you're spending time with your kids or your significant other, that's your priority at that moment. Don't spend time checking email with your phone in your hand or stressing out about, the issue that happened earlier that day. And that's easier said than done. But I think it starts with a priority list, a time commitment, and then a real time commitment, as in wherever you are, learn to be there. So you're making the most in the time you're invested and not playing the guilt game of wherever you are, you're really not, because you're wanting to be where you're not. And therefore you never really are where you are, if that makes sense.
That is so huge.
The present moment,
that is
guys.
So huge. So I love that you said this, because I think so many people, especially in today's world, struggle with this so much. Is there something that you've done that has helped you really be present in those moments, right? Say you just had something like a fire that was at work, but you committed to your family that you were going to go do a family thing. How do you handle that situation?
So a couple thoughts, just practical tips, right? And again, I'll admit, like Amelia said, I don't think anybody's perfect at this, right? I mean, I think just in our nature, it's very hard just to shift gears from minute to minute. But things that I've found have helped. I'm a firm believer, your calendar is always going to be filled. It's just a matter of who's filling it. So, I mean, it's I don't know if everybody watching or listening, there's always a full calendar. There's always stuff to be done. It's just a matter of if you're intentionally filling your calendar by your design, or you're letting everybody else fill your calendar with their priorities. Other people's priorities of your time will not usually match your priorities of your time. And if you're not protecting it, your time is going to get sucked and robbed and grabbed by everybody else around you nonstop. So I think number one is, if it doesn't get scheduled, it doesn't get done. Design your calendar based on your life values and priorities, not based on everybody else's priorities. Meaning, I literally put everything in my calendar. So yes, I put work stuff or business stuff in my calendar, but I also put my time in my calendar, right? I put my family time, my kids' time, right? I make sure that we always have something on the calendar as a family to look forward to, something coming up, whether it's a half a day on a Sunday or a trip next month, right? But I block those out so I protect that, because I found if I didn't, then it gets sucked up by other things, often less important things. So I'd say number one, actually schedule it. And it becomes empowering when you look at your schedule for a week or a month and you're like, okay, well, how much time am I putting in to XYZ? Is that what I want, or I need to make an adjustment? Right. So it starts there. And then when you actually stick to it, right, I've found that creating space, so chunking similar things. If you're going to get into a work mode, chunk that and try to get it all done in a series. If you're going to get into a family mode or relationship mode, kind of chunk that if you can create space in between. And then, lastly, Rachel, and this might be crazy to a lot of people, listening to this right now, like, airplane mode is your friend. Like airplane mode. It's your friend. Like, I don't know about you, but if my phone's in my pocket, even if it's on and I'm not checking it, I can feel like messages are coming through. And just airplane mode for some reason makes it like, okay. So it might sound silly, but hey, if you're spending time with your significant other and you want to be present at dinner, you're not going to die. It's not going to explode. The world's not going to end if you throw the thing on airplane mode for an hour. Same thing with your kids. So those little tips, I mean, they've worked for me. I don't know about you guys. Have you found anything effective for you?
Oh, man. I loved what you said. I think that is so helpful. So helpful.
Well, I think, guys, if you guys are just tuning in, you're listening to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio, where we're speaking with Blake Mallen, billion-dollar brand builder for over 2 decades, have done a lot with his life, and we're having an incredible conversation of, when you're filling your calendar, remember who's filling that calendar, which is so true. And I think I love the way that you described that, because, it's this idea of like structure creates freedom. And so that when you have that, it's like, okay, well then I know where I'm at, I know where I'm going, and I can say, hey, I can adjust it accordingly. No, I think we do the same thing, but what I've been doing recently, and I can only speak for myself, is making sure to do those personal projects, to do the things with us. Like, I bought Jesse Itzler's big ass calendar. It's called Big Ass Calendar, to like not only it's more about building the life resume, which is the reason why we'll be nomads traveling around the world this year, starting in March.
Awesome. I love it.
But that's a whole nother story. But for those tuning in, guys, we're going to be tuning into our first segment here in a bit. Rapid fire questions with Blake Mallen.
Oh, this is my favorite. I love this section.
But before we go in, I wanted to just to kind of leave people at a cliffhanger, given that we're talking about scripts, Blake, and I love in the TED Talk that you did, you're talking about, back in the day from agriculture to manufacturing to and that there were scripts for those times, right? And I think I love that you talked about like the generational gaps or generational fights, but that, it's, I think you described it as but just a bad phone connection that, you're saying like, hey, follow the script, this generation is saying. And then the other generation, millennials, Gen Z, whatever, is saying, hey, it's not working, and trying to create, right? Like you say, very key word, to create and adjust the things that are, and really creating a whole life plan. Now, with that in mind, for our listeners, when we speak about relationships, one of the things that I want to have a conversation after the rapid fire questions is this notion of when you enter into marriage, right? So we just got engaged in December. And
congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm very excited.
And so, there's a script out that says, and bear with me here, is that marriage is going to be hard. That, or maybe there's a script of like all the old ball and chain, and there's all these like sayings around what marriage is in a traditional sense. And in those people talking, that generation, a lot of times they didn't have the self-development books, podcasts, conferences. They didn't study it every day, like let's say we have, since we've been 6th grade self-development junkies for our own reasons. There's a generation who didn't have that, so then they went through pains and sufferings, and then they're sharing that script, like, hey guys, it's hard. It's this, that, or the other, And my challenge, and I think both of our challenges, is what if? Why does it have to be that way? And not saying that like, and I'm not saying that there's going to be like the ups and downs. I'm not saying that there are going to be those challenges. You know what I'm saying? Like, where I'm going with this? Like, why does it have to be that hard? Why does it have to be this and that? Like, if you had the communication tools, maybe things would never like get to a place where you react, or if something explodes into an argument, because I've certainly been through the 10,000 toxic relationships, because we talk about that, but I want to be able to explore that more in depth about like, what is the current script in marriage right now?
Or just relationships in general. Yeah.
And can we shift the script, as you would say? Yes. So if you guys want to know more and dive deep with Blake Mallen on how he shifts the script, stay tuned after our rapid fire questions.
All right, so getting into rapid fire, and then we're going to hold that thought, guys, and get to it right after. Blake, this is one of our favorite little segments, just a fun way to get to know you better, to think on our feet, and to have some fun. Yeah. So, rapid fire questions. These are just like, you have to answer fast, like there's no thinking about these. It's like gut reactions.
Yes.
All right, so babe, kick us off. Question
right.
Numero uno.
Putting me on the spot. We like to go present moment sometimes. So
Yes.
I'm going to say, Blake, what is your favorite element? Meaning, wind, fire, or, air, fire, what, what is your
That's
favorite?
easy.
Yeah.
That's easy. My least favorite is wind, by the way. Like, I just don't like wind. I just don't like wind.
Oh, I love wind. Yeah.
My favorite, though, is easy. It's water. Water.
Me too.
Nice. Okay.
Same
That's
here.
her for sure. She's got to be near the water.
I just have to be near the. Is there just quick? Why is that for you?
It's always been. I mean, I've always been drawn to it. I could never not live in it. Like, Emilio, you and I were talking. I've surfed all my life. I've lived near the ocean all my life. If I'm ever having a stress day, bad day, need clarity, I'm getting in the water. I'm getting near water. I'm looking at water. So I've always been attracted to it. I don't know. Maybe it's an Aquarius thing.
Well, I'm a Scorpio and I'm the same way. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Same exact thing. Okay, so I love asking this question. I actually asked this recently, but what is one of your favorite pieces of advice that you ever got?
Favorite pieces of advice I ever got. I'll give one that's more recent because I think it's timely. And it was from one of my, I guess you call him a spiritual mentor, someone I've been friends with for a number of years. And we were having a conversation in relation to what was going on in the world last year, 2020. And the piece of advice was this, that our potential is not based on what we achieve. It's based on what we overcome. And for me, I love that because I've spent my life, and I think a lot of us, we compare ourselves to what everybody else is doing. And we look at a scoreboard, whether the scoreboard is a bank account or a metric or a number or amount of followers or, some sort of result. And if we're not getting the results we want in the moment, we devalue ourselves or we think we're less. And there's a lot of people in the world right now that maybe are not getting the results going through 2020, 2021, where maybe you want, but that doesn't mean that you're less of a person. I think our potential is not tied to results. It's tied to what we've overcome.
I love
and
that.
So I think that's a big one, is what we overcome makes us who we are, makes us stronger. And let's face it, the world's overcoming a lot right now. And that makes me excited for where we're going.
Love it. Love that
love
perception.
that.
And it's
Love
so
that.
true. Rapid fire question number 3. If you were to believe in past lives, what past life do you feel you've had? Who were you?
Who are you, Blake?
Who were you, Blake? If you had a past life, who were you and where were you?
And we're not saying we don't know about this. We're just saying let's have fun here.
Yeah.
I love it. Disclaimer.
Yeah.
I've never been asked that question, and I've never thought about that question.
Perfect.
So if I were to have had a past life, what was I? Maybe a teacher.
Okay.
Maybe some sort of teacher, some sort of educator. Someone that enjoyed sharing what I learned in some way. So that'd be the first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
Love that.
Right on.
All right, rapid fire number 4. You talk a lot about making memories and experiences. What is your least favorite travel experience that you've
I
had?
want to have the favorite, but at least it is. Okay.
No, because here's the thing. A lot of times the least favorite is like the crazy
Least
one.
favorite travel experience.
Yes.
Well, the crazy ones are the most fun, I think.
Yeah.
But
Okay, we can say either one that
least-
you want to say. Either least favorite or the craziest travel
Oh,
experience.
no, I can go to least favorite. That's in my head. You're just, I'm getting a little sick thinking about it. It was 2 years ago. My wife and I were going to Montego Bay, Jamaica for our anniversary. We were bringing the kids. And my son, at the time, is maybe 3.5 or so, got really, really sick on the first leg of the plane flying from LAX to Miami. So I'm sitting there with kids. And if you've ever traveled with kids, period, it's hectic. And he got sick on the plane and threw up all over me on the plane. Right. And I'm one of those people, like, if someone throws up near you, like, I get the gag reflex, right? So I'm sitting there going and then it couldn't do anything, or so I didn't catch it, couldn't do anything. I'm sitting there in just a pile of vomit. We are last stretch, we land, I have to wait for everybody, I have to walk off this plane, like, in that just, oh my gosh, like dripping vomit.
wow.
So That's probably one of my least favorite literally travel experiences.
Yes.
Was traveling with kids and having to be dad.
Oh my gosh, can I just say that I feel you in the sense that we were driving
I vomit
home.
on her all the time. I'm sorry, babe. I'm sorry.
No, that is not happening. But seriously though, we were driving home from, I think it was like a family trip. This was when I was, my teenager. My older brother was sitting behind me. I was in Dreamland, and in Dreamland, I'm feeling all of a sudden all this like warm, gooey stuff on me, and I'm like, oh, what is this? Like in my dream, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wake up to ew, 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 and my older brother had thrown up on me because he was trying to get to the window, but he literally threw up all over me, and then I started throwing up all over the place. And so yeah, I can't be around throw up because I just start throwing up. But but now we can laugh about those experiences.
That's it.
You know?
Yeah.
Now we can
it's
laugh
the
about
pleasures
them.
of being a parent.
Oh man. Well, thank you for sharing that, Blake. And
Yes,
if you guys
I
are
love
just
it.
tuning in, you're listening to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio, where we're talking to Blake Mallen,
Yes.
a $1 billion brand builder for over 2 decades and a whole lot more. Go check him out. But we just finished a rapid fire segment of the show. We got 2 more to go. But going back to where we started right before, shifting the script. So I want to
relationships.
I really want to hear your thoughts on that, right? In terms of, there are certain scripts out there that says, hey, when you get married, this is how it's going to be, and when you have kids, this is how it's going to be. And we've certainly, because we're in the relationship realm, have interviewed and talked with so many different relationships around the world. Yeah, people that do it this way, people that do it that way, and all the things. But given that you're very much the script, the shifting the script, the master, I would say, what are your thoughts on maybe shifting the script in those areas?
Yep. Well, first, I love that you took kind of the framework from the TED Talk and you're applying it to relationships. I think it's awesome. Because that was my exact hope, right? I hope that people would get the concept enough to be able to apply it in their life and broader. So I love that. So thank you for that. And I'll carry on the analogy. So why do I think people still get stuck in that previous script? I think it goes, actually, hold on one second, guys, because I'm going to turn off my audio on. I feel like our audio on Clubhouse just went really up.
Yeah, guys, if you guys are joining us here and listening on the radio, we also do Clubhouse. So join if you're interested in the Clubhouse. The new app that everybody's flocking to.
We're figuring it out, guys.
Yeah, no, it's good. I was like, I'm hearing myself in surround sound. I can't handle it.
Yeah, same.
So yeah, I mean, just so the quick version. Let's break that down exactly what you said. So we all know our most malleable years are our younger years, right? Like literally, that's where our personalities get wired, our brains get wired, right? They get hardwired. A lot of people say age 2 to 5, and then definitely 5 all the way to 18. So if we all go back to, doesn't matter how old you are listening to this, we all were brought up in a system that was designed by people way in the past for a time that no longer exists. It was a system designed a long time ago for an economy at that point. And it takes time to build a system and structures and that system still exists. Although we're living in a time where those rules maybe don't apply, we're still operating on all of the lessons and the imprinting and the ingraining of a script we were given. And I think that is a giant issue. That is the problem. That is why we need to give people that awakening moment and that awareness, like, hey, you're still following a protocol for a time that no longer exists, right? And yet you're living your life that way. So let's just take that concept and then translate it to relationships. Same thing, right? And I think you nailed it, Amelia. Like, why does it have to be that way? It doesn't. Why do we continue to hear that? It's a script. It's literally a script that our parents got it passed down to them, and they're now passing it down to us because nobody woke them up and showed them another way. So first step in everything is we have to be aware that it is a script being given. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong. Doesn't mean it's true or false. It is a script given, probably written by generations long ago, that's being passed to us in most cases without anybody ever questioning, is this the right advice to be passing on to the next generation? It's like, right, osmosis, it's routine. So I think number one is realize this is a script. It's not true or false, right? If we rewind hundreds of years it wasn't the same script back then. It just happens to be the script we're receiving right now, right? So it hasn't always been truth. It isn't truth. It doesn't have to be that way. So then goes to, well, what do you do about it? Once you realize it, you start to question everything that you've received, and you start to question all the advice that you've been given with a different lens. Because now it's not taken as truth or fact. It's taken as, all this is a set of steps that they're repeating from somebody a long time ago, and that really has no relation to me, my relationship, or my point in life right now, right? So you can start to question it. And then it goes to, okay, well, what do we do in terms of finding a new script? And I'm a big fan of just modeling. So I think, Emilio, the direct answer on, okay, well, what do I do? How do I find it? It's just a script. It doesn't have to be yours. Question what's there. Let's find one that works. And here's the big realization. There are people right now, and there are relationships right now that are living in a different script. There's people that have made the shift. There's people that it isn't hard. There's people with loving relationships. There's people that, right, enjoy their time together. There's people that are aligned. There are couples right now in this world, plenty of them, that have made that shift for themselves. So I think the starting point is go find people that you aspire to be like, couples that you look at and you can learn from, people that you're like, man, they seem to be doing something different. I'd love to have a relationship in that direction, and start to break down, well, what are the patterns or what are the components that they're living every single day? So I don't know if that answers your question, but for me, it's those steps. Yes. Awaken, realize it's a script, realize it doesn't have to be for you, start to question it, and then start to find patterns of people who are living more in the direction or a relationship that you want, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And I think that's so cool, because whatever script it is, or whatever life situation, or whatever goal it is, you can take that same sort of method there, that same framework that I feel like we've both taken for most of our lives.
It's so true. It's like, like you talk about, like, we are the creators of our life. Yeah. People forget sometimes, that we get to choose every moment how to be. There's, if Rachel and I, and not to say that we're perfect either, but, we're aware more so. And I think when we talk about well, let me just get to the point here. So and then kind of do a little reverse engineer. Let's say, because we're the creators of our life, and we like to say co-creators because we believe that, God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it, is kind of always conspiring for you. And it's this really beautiful balance. And, but, I can choose that if I feel like a fight's about to break out or something's kind of bubbling up, it's all, again, our tagline, like, kill your Superman to find your Wonder Woman. In short, what is Superman? The ego. Like, would I rather be right in this relationship, or would I rather be happy? We were talking about happy. Like, and it took some time to finally say, look, it's okay. Sometimes I get, like, for instance, I'll just make this real. In the past 2 days ago, I was getting passionate about something. And sometimes when I get passionate about something, it can seem like I'm raising my voice and yelling. And naturally, and there's a whole psychology to this with women. Like when men are yelling or raising their voice, they don't feel protected or safe.
They don't feel safe, yeah.
And so, we've learned some great communication styles where Rachel will verbalize that. We'll say that, like, literally, like, babe, I don't feel safe right now, and whatever else that she wants to say. And at the end of the day, now, my past selves, many, 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 many times, my ego would come up and be like, what are you talking about? And I would try to prove my point more so, and my ego would get away. And it's like, at the end of the day, I can choose. I can create what I want to create in this moment. And like you said, Blake, be here now. What is she saying to me? She's saying she doesn't feel safe. Like, the woman I love is not feeling safe around me right now. Like... And so with the work that we always talk about, it's like that decision point as to what I can do in that moment starts to get bigger. It's just the decision point gets, like, longer and longer, to where I can say, reset, breathe, and just be like, we could be, I'm sorry. It could just be holding her as she cries. It could be, babe, tell me more about what you're feeling. Whatever it is, it's like, I think we forget that we can create every moment. I can choose to kill my Superman. I can choose to, like, pump up my Superman, whatever it may be. But I think, like, it's so important with your intentional living that you talk about, and what we're talking about now, what you just described is, it sounds so simple, but it's profound. Like, we forget that we can create, that we're creators. Yeah. And definitely want to talk more about how we can create better intentional living. But, I think that's so key, right?
I love the way you said that. And it's the truth. Right? And I love that you guys have a community like this show, the Relationship Renegades. And I know you have a tribe online. You guys, that in itself is part of the answer. If you surround yourself with other couples that are at least aspiring to have healthy relationships, aspiring to talk through this, you can't help but learn. Like, it's impossible to put yourself in a community like you guys are building and have conversations like this and not get better at relationships. Because literally what you're doing and what we're doing in this conversation is we are co-creating, right?
Yeah.
A new script for relationships. So case in point, you guys are doing it, and the people that I'm sure are part of this community are already rewriting that script and are getting value from it. That is the solution, or at least the beginning of it.
Well, and I just want to say too that like it is not always easy, right? When we have emotions that come up and we have like, or big things that we might be working on, and like life hits us in the face, or like the person that we love didn't maybe hear the thing that we wanted them to hear when we were getting passionate or getting loud, right? Like understanding each other. But I love that you keep saying awareness is key, right? Like the awareness, because if we are not aware, we don't know what we don't know. As soon as we start to understand, then we can start to be aware and start to ask questions and to change things. And I think the example that he was talking about, I was so aware that like, okay, I have the choice right now. I can either yell at him and tell him that he's crazy and that I'm so angry at him, and I'm, I could choose that, or I could choose to just say what I actually feel. Like I actually just, hey, I know you're trying to encourage me, but the way you're doing it, I'm feeling so unsafe, and every part of me wanted to go isolate myself, wanted to just be like, I just want to go away. I don't want to be around you right now. And every part of it was so hard for me to I just sat there and I closed my eyes and I was just breathing for like 10 minutes. And then I was like, okay, able to say that. And then that choice ended up with us, instead of being fighting and disconnected, ended up with us being like snuggling and loving each other on the couch afterwards. And we both had this moment of like, wow, we could have just chosen something completely different that led to a completely different outcome. So I just want people, if you're listening, or it's not easy, it's not always easy, but it's so worth it. Like that choice to choose a different script is so worth it. In your relationship with your wife, have you guys ever experienced something similar, or when you're feeling those emotions come up and, for our listeners, they're like, yeah, but how do you do that when you feel crazy and you feel like they're so wrong and you're right? What do you guys do that helps you in those situations?
I love it. And yeah, 21 years together. And like I said, growing up together. So there's been a lot of different seasons and a lot of different phases. I want to highlight 2 words that you said, Rachel, because they are the key. And the words you said were, I feel. And this one is hard for guys, right? A lot of guys, right? Not all guys, but it's hard for a lot of guys. Women are naturally, in my experience, a lot better at this. But you can't argue how someone feels. How someone feels is not debatable, right? It's not debatable. I think that's something we all, but guys out there listening, you can't debate feeling. You can't argue feeling. There's no way to be right or wrong on feeling. Like how someone feels is how someone feels. That's the fact. Okay. So I think just down to like simple language or tools, not focusing on, what's the issue or what's the stance or digging your heels in or who's right and what's right and everything that we can get sucked into. It's getting down to the root of, okay, I feel this way, right? Because of this. And I found that diffuses a lot of the conversations, and it works both ways. So guys out there, I don't think that's just, something that, our significant others can say to us. Like, we have to be strong enough and willing enough and open enough, going against that whole masculine script we've been taught, to be able to say like, look, this is how I feel. And this is why. And if somebody argues that, I literally say, look, you can't argue how I feel.
Some people will try to argue that. It's like,
so I think that's a big one. I think just small but practical tips are make a rule never to say something you're going to regret saying later. Like, we know that, like, you know, if you say something instantly, you're like, I'm going to regret saying that later. So I think developing kind of the emotional intelligence or the pause, or the self-discipline, just don't say things that you know you're going to regret saying later. And maybe one other just realization is, none of us is perfect. So, like, you know, the minute you're willing to cast a stone, be prepared for a stone to be cast back, right? The minute you're willing to cast judgment on others, be ready for judgment to cast back. And a lot of times, that in my experience, those that do judge most often are people that have the most to be judged. You know, so I think those things, I know it's easier said than done, but, you know, don't be so quick to cast a stone. You're not perfect, right? They're living with you, they're loving you, and they take you and all your imperfections, right? You got to give some grace, you know, and don't say something that you're going to regret later. And when in doubt, just ignore the issue at hand, topic at hand, you know, who's right, what's right. Agree to disagree, focus on I feel because, and I think that'll get to the root. So those are some little things that I've found effective over time.
I love that.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that, Blake. You know, another thing that's coming to my mind with this theme of scripts and all the scripts that are out there, and whether we're conscious of it or not, you know, when we speak about in the state of the union that we're in right now, and this is not getting political or anything, it's just more of like, you know, we have a new generation coming.
Yep.
And they're in a different world right now. And I'm curious as to what scripts you feel that this new generation coming up is receiving. And maybe diving into that as to how, you know, first, what is that in your opinion? And two, whether it's good, bad, or the other, like just how can we co-create a world where we help optimize or elevate or enhance or help that generation, because I think it's important, right? You have kids. We soon will be having kids. So I'm curious in your mindset and your experience and competence, what you feel the current generation is receiving as a script.
Yep. Emilio, I'm scared.
Yeah.
That the script they're getting still today is very similar to the script I was given, you were given, for me a while ago, right? I turned 40 next week, so I'll be celebrating my 40th birthday next week.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, brother.
Thank you. And that's my fear. Like, that's my fear. And I think about that. Like, I think about that for my 5-year-old, you know, he'll finish his last year of preschool this year, and then he moves to kindergarten, you know, next year. But I think about that. Like, is it going to be the same curriculum? Is it going to be the same rules? Is it going to be the same framework? Is it going to be the same script? Like, has it changed? I've been out of that. So that is my fear. I don't know. I'm not in the classroom. I'm not going through it. I don't know if it's changed. I don't think it has. And if it has, not enough. So that is the fear. And at some point it does need to shift, like go macro, big vision. Like at some point, the whole script in the system will need to shift. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not anti-school by any means. I'm not anti-education by any means. I'm just saying maybe the approach, right, or the structure we are teaching could better prepare our next generation for the current world we live in.
Yes.
But it's going to take a lot of people, right, waking up, enough of the right and influential people wanting to make the shift, and a huge organized, orchestrated effort, right, to repair that system. I don't know how and when that's going to happen. I know it's long overdue. I know the millennials are kind of breaking the glass. I know the Gen Z, right now coming up is like marching to their own beat. Maybe it's going to have to be to the Gen Z have the authority to shift it. I don't know. But I'll answer the second part of your question. I don't think the new script is a script by old terms, meaning I don't think there's a single set of steps we can give to somebody like we've done in the past. And I've thought a lot about this because I've been asked the question a lot. Okay, well, like this old script doesn't work. I know that. Everybody knows that, but we're saying it because we don't have a new one to say. So what's the new one? And I don't think there is a single set of steps, because that script was written to create a cookie cutter type of person to feed what was then an industrial economy where we needed a lot of people doing simple things. I think the world has shifted. I know the world has shifted. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's a set of steps. I don't think it's giving the answers, giving directive. I think it's teaching people to ask the right questions.
Yes.
I think it's not here's the solution. It's how do we solve a problem? I think it's a framework. So I'll put it this way. I don't have a perfect answer, but I think I have a compass that can point someone the right way. And I'll give it in 3 words. Passion, potential, and purpose. And I'll clarify. We all have passions that we know. Like, you guys know what you're passionate about. Everyone listening knows what we're passionate about. It's innate. It's hardwired. Like, there are things that light us on fire, make us feel alive, move us forward. We get excited. We get enthusiastic. Amelia, you said it earlier, like, feelings are indicators, right? That's your body telling you what you're meant to do. Potential. And what I mean by potential really gets down to, like, what are you good at? What do you excel at? What are your gifts, your strengths, your strength zone? And we all have those, right? And what's awesome and beautiful is we all have different ones, right? The things that Rachel excels at, like, I can't do the stuff you do, right? Amelia, I can't do the stuff you do, but I can do the stuff I do, and we all can do the stuff we do. The problem is, I find most people put themselves in a lane where they spend their life fixated on weakness or trying to get good at things because they see other people are good at, or beat themselves out because they don't excel as fast as others, instead of focusing on the gifts they were given. And we've all been given gifts, and we have indicators of that, right? When you do something you excel at, you get in a flow, it ignites you. It's an indicator you're in your gift zone, your potential zone. And then lastly, purpose. And purpose for me is just taking those first 2 and then doing it in a way that's greater than you, or for something that's greater for yourself. Like, I think at the end of the day, you want to do something that contributes. So for those of you guys listening, if you're sitting there going, yeah, Blake, I know the script doesn't work. I know I need to make the shift. Or maybe this conversation is waking you up to that. And you're like, but where do I go? Rachel's first question, Rachel, coming back to your earlier question. I would say the compass is find the alignment of your passion, the things that light you on fire, your potential, the gifts you've been given, and a purpose in a way that can add value to others. And if you find the intersection of those 3 things, I think you're moving in the right direction. So that would be my crack, Amelia, on how do we shift the script. And I think that applies for relationships as it does for the future generation of business and life in general.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so important, and more so than ever, right? I think it's understanding that there is no one thing for everybody, because we're all so uniquely different, and to work with frameworks rather than scripts, to work with questions rather than answers, Yeah. And so I think, it's so interesting because he has these 5 P's that he talks about that are very aligned with what you just said. And I have these 5 C's that I talk about, basically just curiosity, creativity, compassion, courage, and connection, which go along with those same things. And so I think it's having these frameworks for life and these power questions to check in with and get the answers that are deep within us. And rather than having people tell us what to do, it's just asking ourselves, what do we really want to do?
Yeah, and I think that goes along with kind of my fears as to what's happening right now. And I think it's been happening for a while, but I think it's kind of 10x right now. It's like, I think the generation now is like, first of all, are not asking themselves those questions or having critical thinking or seeing what kind of intuition or inspired thought may come up, because they're just going through the motions or just doing the things. And it's like, we're in a world where we're just getting fed, like the masses are just getting fed in all different subliminal messages, right, all over the place, in media and all this kind of stuff. And so that they no longer have to think or feel or any of these things we've been talking about on the show. And I think that's certainly my fear, is that, the overarching thing is really the loss of real connection and real community. And then, the byproducts of that being like, I can't think for myself or critically think for myself. People are choosing sides. We're separated, right? We got the left and the right, and I don't talk, not in a political sense. I'm just saying we're just so disconnected. And it's like we always talk about how, why not understand both sides so much that you can argue both sides, and then in being able to argue both sides, maybe you find the hidden truths that neither party are seeing. And just having that growth mindset, just like questioning stuff, like we continue to say. But it's just like, I think my fear is the loss of connection and community, the loss of critical thinking of like, hey, you are powerful, you are a creator, like what do you think? And how can you change? Because it has always been one person or a group of small people that have changed the trajectory and disrupted life as we know it. When you look at, empires and communities, I mean, for decades and decades and centuries, it's like, it's always been a one person. It's always been the group of a few people. Yeah. And I think so many people think like, oh, who am I? And just feel so powerless because the powers that be, quote unquote, are the ones that know. And it's like, are you kidding me? That's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and so, yeah, I think I appreciate you sharing that. And I just hope that, on all of our platforms, we can help inspire people to get their power back, to find their purpose, their passion, their potential, because they have it. It's waiting for them. If we're silent, cut out the noise, and really see what arises.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. I love it. That's the direction we need to go. And people like you two, and hopefully people that listen to this and get inspired and move in this direction, to create change. It's never, like you said, a small group of people that do like extraordinary things. If you want to create real change, it just takes a large group of ordinary people that just get passionate, excited to do very simple things. But the key is doing simple things all at the same time. And if we can just ignite enough people to see it, to awaken, to make the change in their life, and then just to be an example by how they live, at some point things will shift. Like I believe that. And sooner rather than later is my hope.
Yeah,
I agree. Well, and that's a perfect transition to get us into one of our favorite segments is the Renegade segment, right? So the Renegade moment and or breakthrough moment. And everybody that is just tuning in, you're listening to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio. I'm Rachel Brooks Smith.
And I'm Emilio Palafox.
And we're speaking with the one and only Blake Mallen. And we're about to ask him one of our favorite questions, which is, what is your renegade moment that you want to share with listeners? A moment where you chose differently, a moment where you went against the grain, a moment where you really were like, you know what, I'm going to be a freaking renegade and do something different this time.
Yeah, life-changing experience. Yeah,
the life-changing moment. I mean, I'd be inauthentic or lying if I didn't go back to the story I started with, because that was my moment, right? Yeah. So if we're looking for a defining moment, it was that moment when someone asked me why, and I realized in that moment, oh shoot, literally I spent 18 years of my life following a script. Like I remember at the time in my room, I had a piece of paper that was literally just listing my resume. Like I was literally, okay, I'm doing this and this and this and this and this. I'm literally building my resume, right, as I'm going through so I could have the perfect pitch to the law school I was going to apply to. And it was literally that moment that woke me up. And I remember like it was visceral for me. Like I felt lied to. Like I was like, I felt, not to go like overboard, but I'm explaining how I felt in the moment. Like I felt, whoa, did I just waste 18, 19 years of my life running motions, following a script, for no other reason than it's what other people at some point thought I was supposed to do. And then I immediately, Rachel, casted that feeling of like wasted life forward. And then I was like, well, if I don't shift and I keep going down this road that I'm going, this supposed to road, well, I'm going to feel this same way 5 years from today, 10 years from today, 20 years from today, 30 years from today. So like it was that moment for me that was the awakening of, wow, I gotta start questioning this. This isn't who I'm meant to be, what I'm meant to do, right? And I gotta start the search. So, and for people out there, like, you may not have like a defining like single moment, and it doesn't have to be like some guru or some like breakthrough, or it literally can be just the point where you get where the pain is big enough, the pain that you've been through, the pain that you're going through, or the pain that you project. Like you get to a place where like the pain is big enough that you make a change, right? And that you make a shift. And for me, that was it. And it was a hard shift because like I was the script. Like I was the graduated high school with a 4.2, student body president, top university, graduated 3 degrees, Latin honors, magna cum laude, gonna be a lawyer. Like it didn't get more like cliche. And then here's me. I ended up graduating college early, getting my classes done just so I could go full time as an entrepreneur. And I remember all the questions of all like family and friends graduating. Oh, you graduated college early. Like, what are you going to do now? And, you know, they're thinking, I'm like, oh, I'm going to this law school. I'm going to go do this. Or I took this job. And no, my answer is I'm going to start a business from my home. And people thought I was completely nuts. Like they thought I was like, what? Like I still have the reactions of people's faces burning in my head. And so like, I guess that's the renegade moment. The renegade moment was first the awakening and then the decision to stick with it despite what I felt, and it probably felt more than it was, what I felt everyone around me expected me to do. And that fight of the expectation or going against the grain or being the renegade, as you guys say, that was years of fighting that type of doubt. Am I doing the right thing? Is this really the right decision? Should I go back? Are they really right? You know, but sticking to that decision and following what felt right instead of what I was being told, you know, I guess that would be my moment.
I love that you even talked about, you know, what came up for me there. And thank you for sharing, Blake. You know, some of the pain or the suffering, you know, I forget who said this, but there's a quote that says, you know, it's not the resistance, it's not the change that causes the suffering, because we all want to change. And it's the resistance to change that causes the suffering. It's like, you know, and so along that journey, you said, hey, you know, it took years. It's a journey. It's the hero's journey, if you will. What kind of resistance did you face? And how did you, I guess, you know, what were they? What lessons were there for you along that journey of trying to actually finally make the shift completely, right? Because you're going to be on that journey. What were a couple maybe tidbits that you can maybe add to that? I'd love to hear.
Yeah, and for me, it was an entrepreneurial journey, right? So for me, it'll probably speak more to those of you that are entrepreneurs or solopreneurs, or maybe you're at a place right now where you're like, yo, this whole pandemic quarantine is forcing you maybe to reevaluate, and maybe you're realizing you want to make the jump, right? To pursue kind of an entrepreneurial direction. The world needs it right now. We need you. I think that's going to be part of the solution is more entrepreneurs creating new solutions. So make the jump. I would say if I were just to think of some of the top, not in any particular priority of struggles or resistance, I mean, what other people think. I mean, it affects all of us, right? So having to fight the expectations of those around you, sometimes people that you love most or that love you most. I have found, though, that even though you might go against an expectation or you might feel like you're letting people down because, you know, you're not living up to, you know, the script they thought you would pursue. I've found that the people that really care about you, love you most, if they know it's what you want, like if they know it's something you really are passionate about, and they feel that in you, not a whim, not a fad, not a like you have an idea tomorrow and you gave up on it, the next day, but like if they know you're passionate, they support you. They come around, right? They will support you. The people that should stay in your life and the people that love you most, they're going to support if they know it's something that's real. The problem is so many people go on whim decisions and start and stop and play this like overnight entrepreneur game. Sometimes we get that resistance, rightfully so. It's because we're not really sticking to it. But if you really go out there, make a commitment, draw a line, stick to something, the people around you will support you. But that's a resistance, right? Going against the grain, going against the expectation and battling that rejection or fear of rejection, I think would be a big one. I would say fear of failing hits us all, right? Especially as an entrepreneur when you leap into unknown. And I guess my guidance is it's never going to be perfect. Don't strive for perfection. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to mess up over and over and over again. All that is normal, right? Yes. And instead of stressing out about it, just make a game of, well, how many mistakes can you make? How fast? Like, how fast can you iterate? How fast can you learn? How fast can you fall? How fast can you fail? And how fast can you get back up? Because the faster you can do all of that, the faster you figure it out and you get to the other side. but you got to be willing, because again, we've been taught that we're not supposed to make mistakes or supposed to fail, or we have to be perfect. So I would say seek progress over perfection.
Yes, that's my favorite quote, seek progress over perfection. Like, I love it. And the resistance thing, to expect it, right? Because so many times if we know that resistance is going to happen, if we're aware of it, we're like, oh, okay, expect it. To be expected, I'm going to mess up, I'm going to have resistance. It's like, what do I do with it, though, that matters? And I am just noticing, too, that we got to wrap up quickly here. So I want to jump into your favorite find. So really quickly, just like a favorite find that you want to share with the audience. Could be a book, a poem, a song, a service, whatever it is. There's a favorite find you want to share.
I love it. So through last year, through COVID, through quarantine, I think all of us are seeking nature, like get outside. That's been me and my family. So I think some of my favorite finds have just been going and finding just nice places outside, places that have been there forever. We've driven past all my life that I never valued until now. And spending time in places like that. I think, Rachel, we were talking a little earlier, because we kind of share maybe a love for hiking and getting outside. Just this last weekend, I found a little place, Solstice Canyon, which is out here in Southern California, Malibu, off Corral Canyon, and just took the family for an amazing little hike. It was just beautiful, awesome destinations, awesome scenery. We've been going out to Leo Carrillo State Beach on sunsets, and there's an amazing just kind of rock pile you can sit on, and it's a perfect view of sunset this time of the year. I've been finding little places even walking distance from my house, just hiking up to the hill and enjoying the lookouts, enjoying the view. So for me, some of the finds have been just places to be out in nature. And if you're not in Southern California, I bet you have similar places in and around you've overlooked. And I would challenge you, just go get out and appreciate nature and being outside. Go catch some sunsets. It'll make you feel better.
Couldn't agree more. It's one of my favorite things ever. Every day we really try to always watch sunset. It's like, if I could just be there, that just and finding the joy and the beauty in that is so powerful. Yeah. So thank you so much for that.
And also, one of the things that when you were sharing your renegade moment or adding to the question was, I love, we said it the other day, but it's this whole idea of in this transition that people may be in, it's like, I forget who said it. I forget all these things, but somehow I just have this collection of quotes. But it's like, set your life on fire and find people to fan the flame, right? I think when you're making that transition or changing the script or finding a new job or whatever it is, it's going to be challenging. And I love all of the advice and suggestions that you gave, because they're important. But also whether it's your existing friends or family, but also find those people that will fan that flame, because I think be headstrong in that, be heartstrong in that. So I really appreciate you sharing that with our audience. But thank you so much, Blake, for everything that you've shared. We want to make sure that people can continue to follow you, see what you've done, see where you're up to now, see what you're doing. Where can people find you?
Easy to find. So just my name, Blake Mallen. Shoot us all. I'm sure all of us would love some feedback from today's conversation. If something resonated with you, send us a message, right? Send us a DM on Instagram. So at Blake Mallen, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Alive by Design's the podcast. It is in line with a lot of the topics today. Yeah. So if you guys are looking for more amazing information, you can check out that as well. And I just appreciate you guys, all you're doing, the time here, and really what you're doing to make an impact on people, because people need it right now.
Yeah,
thank
absolutely.
you so much.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much, everybody who is listening. Definitely go follow Blake Mallen and all that he does. And just a quick final thing: if you could leave people, your podcast is all about alive, right? So being alive. What is one tip or final piece of advice that you could leave people listening with of how to feel and be more alive?
Yeah.
I love it. And that was the thing when I read about your guys' show, we both have and use fully alive.
Yes.
Fully alive.
Seriously.
Fully alive.
So important.
That's the whole point of life.
Yeah.
If you're living life right now and you're not feeling fully alive, you missed the whole point, right? So I think my one piece of advice is, if you're not feeling that way, right? You're meant to feel that way. If you're not feeling that way, go re-listen to this entire conversation, because we addressed maybe some of the reasons while you're feeling the way that you're feeling. And in my opinion, right, and experience, to feel fully alive, push yourself in that alignment of your passion, the things that excite you, your potential, the things you're good at, right? And your purpose, how you can contribute. And that'll get you off this whole supposed to, and moving toward what you're meant to do and who you're meant to be. And you guys, that's what life's about. And in my opinion, that's what makes you feel alive.
I love it.
Beautifully said, brother.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much, Blake, for being here. We
Thank
just
you, brother.
celebrate you, honor you. Thank you for being the man that you are and for showing up in the world the way that you do and for sharing these amazing messages because, you know, again, people need it, and I could imagine, you know, the thousands, even millions of people that hear this message.
Yeah.
We just want people to wake up.
And when
wake up.
Yeah, and then also when you guys feel fully alive, it allows others to become fully alive. And then there's a beautiful domino effect.
The ripple effects that we all love. So thank you so much, Blake. And thank you for everybody listening. Again, you've been listening to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio. I'm one of your hosts, Rachel Brooks Smith.
And I'm Emilio Palafox.
We love you guys, and we will see you next time.